The town of Blackwood huddled in the valley. It was a place where the sun seemed reluctant to shine. The mountains loomed, casting long shadows over the houses below. The largest shadow belonged to Blackwood Manor. It stood on a hill overlooking the town, a monument to decay and despair. Its windows were dark, like empty eyes. The manor had been empty for almost a century. Locals whispered tales of tragedy and madness. They said the Blackwood family still haunted its halls. No one dared to go near the house, not even in daylight. The wind howled through the valley, rattling the windows of the town's few shops. Rain began to fall, a cold, relentless drizzle. The air grew heavy, thick with dread. It was the kind of night best spent indoors, far from the shadows of Blackwood Manor. But for some, the darkness held a strange allure. Aunt Sophie Miller was not from Blackwood. She was a journalist, drawn to the town by its stories. Sophie had made a career of exploring forgotten places and unearthing forgotten truths. Blackwood Manor, with its dark history and sinister reputation, was irresistible. She sat in the town's only inn sipping lukewarm tea. The innkeeper had warned her about the manor. He said it was a place of evil. He begged her to reconsider, but Sophie was not easily deterred. She had faced danger before, and she would face it again. Sophie opened her notebook and studied the notes she had made. She had collected every scrap of information she could find about Blackwood Manor. Newspaper clippings, old diaries, even whispered rumors. Each piece added to the mystery, fueling her determination. The rain continued to fall outside, a melancholic soundtrack to her thoughts. Sophie closed her eyes, picturing the imposing silhouette of the manor on the hill. She would uncover its secrets. She would bring its darkness to light. The rusty gate creaked open, a sound like a scream in the silence. Sophie stepped onto the grounds of Blackwood Manor. The air grew colder, the atmosphere heavy with a palpable sense of dread. The rain had stopped, but a thick fog clung to the ground, swirling around her feet like ghostly apparitions. She raised her camera, its weight familiar and reassuring in her trembling hands. The mansion loomed before her, more imposing up close. The stone walls were slick with moisture, and ivy snaked its way up the crumbling facade like grasping claws. As Sophie approached the front door, a sudden gust of wind slammed against the house. The sound echoed through the empty grounds, amplified by the silence that followed. She paused, her heart pounding in her chest. Was it just the wind, or was it something more? Ignoring the tremor of fear that ran down her spine, Sophie reached for the doorknob. It was ice cold to the touch, sending a shiver through her body. She took a deep breath and pushed the door open. The air inside Blackwood Manor was stale and heavy, thick with the scent of decay and dust. The only light came from the sliver of a waning moon that pierced through the gaps in the boarded-up windows. Shadows stretched and danced in the dim light, playing tricks on her eyes. Sophie stepped inside, her footsteps echoing in the cavernous hall. Cobwebs hung from every corner, and the air was thick with dust motes that danced in the faint light. The remnants of grandeur were still visible, a sweeping staircase, a once magnificent chandelier now draped in cobwebs, and faded portraits on the walls, their eyes seeming to follow her every move. As she ventured deeper into the house, she noticed strange occurrences. A floorboard creaked in the room above, although she was certain she was alone. A cold draught brushed past her cheek, though all the windows were sealed shut. Whispers seemed to emanate from the walls, too faint to decipher, but filled with an undeniable sorrow. Sophie's heart pounded in her chest, a mixture of fear and exhilaration. She had come here for a story, but now she wasn't sure if she was the one hunting for the truth, or if the truth was hunting her. The library was a testament to forgotten knowledge. Books lined the shelves from floor to ceiling, their leather spines cracked and covered in a thick layer of dust. A grand fireplace dominated one wall, cold and empty. Above the mantel hung a portrait of a man with haunted eyes, his gaze fixed on Sophie. She ran her fingers along the spines of the books, their titles barely visible in the dim light. Histories, novels, volumes on philosophy and the occult. The Blackwood family had been avid readers. She wondered if their secrets were hidden within these pages. As she reached for a particularly old and worn volume, she heard it again, a soft whisper close to her ear. She spun around, but the library was empty. There was no one there. The only sound was the beating of her own heart. Sophie took a deep breath, trying to rationalize her fear. It was just the wind, she told herself, just the house settling. But deep down, a primal part of her knew that something was wrong. Something was watching her.